The content you're about to enjoy comes from the archives of The Best You. We're devoted to the very best in personal development, with a platform and resources dedicated to inspiring and changing people's lives. At The Best You, we work with the world's leading writers and trainers on the evolution of the self, and people whose journeys have been affected by their work and words. These Best You EXPO talks are recorded in front of a live audience in a live event. We highly recommend that you focus on the message. As they say, what you focus on expands. Enjoy. Hilary Deveyl. Hilary is a CB. She's the CEO and chairman of Palex, the UK's leading palletized freight distribution network. She's an inspirational role model and entrepreneur. She's obviously well known for her role in Dragon's Den. And she started from nothing. She's grown the company into an international network which has a combined turnover over £100 million. She's a tremendously inspirational lady, and we were honoured to have her at our second expo. So she has some very interesting insights here. It's a Q&A format, and I'm sure you're going to get some great insights. Thank you so much. Hilary Deveyl's talk is titled The Best Me. Enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, being interviewed by Robert Benoit, please give a warm Best You welcome to the outstanding Hilary Deveyl.
Hilary, you're known as a serial entrepreneur, a former dragon on Dragon's Den. You're obviously a very astute businesswoman. Now, do you ever admit to any mistakes?
Well, I think we've all made mistakes, but I made 3 huge mistakes in my life, and they're collectively called ex-husbands. My first husband was a musician. Unfortunately, he lavished more care and attention on the body of his guitar than he did on mine. And my second husband was, an avid Liverpool fan. And girls, I'd just decorated my lounge in peach, red and silver. And he stuck this, let me swear, bloody awful picture of what he referred to of his beloved Anfield right in the middle of my wall. And it had a tacky frame to it, and I moaned and moaned about this picture because it clashed with my deco. So one day I skipped it. Anyway, we got divorced over that and many other things, and he had to have a Porsche in his divorce settlement. But I learned one thing from that, and that is that there's very little difference between Porsche and hedgehogs, except hedgehogs have pricks on the outside. And my third husband, the less said, the better. Cost me a lot of money. So, 3 big mistakes. And what I would say is one of the things to success in business, in life even, is choosing the right partner, whether it be business partner or your partner in life. You must get the right partner.
Yeah, Hilary, you're the founder, owner and chief executive of Palex, but you're also known as a TV presenter. Can you tell us how you got into television in the first place?
Purely by default, actually. They chased me to do Secret Millionaire, which I'll never live down. Although I did help some really nice people, and 2 of them, of the charities that I helped, are still very, very dear friends of mine. Following The Secret Millionaire, I remember I was actually staying in London the night it was aired and forgot all about it. The following morning, I tried to ring work, as I do every morning, and I couldn't get through. when I eventually did, I said to the receptionist, what the hell's going on? I must have tried to ring 20 times. She said, Hilary, it's engaged. They're all calling for you. They want you. So it had rather a resounding success. I got, from Secret Millionaire, believe it or not, girls, I got, stacks, must have been that thick, of marriage proposals. I had one guy who professed to have the body of a 36-year-old, but was 72. He actually turned up at Palix HQ with his bank statements, which, bless his little cotton socks, he had 6,000 in the bank and a bungalow in Hastings, and he wanted to whisk me away and look after me for the rest of my life with his £6,000. Unfortunately, I had to decline his offer. But I had a lot of fun doing Secret Millionaire, but they chased me to do it, and I did it. At the time, it's no secret for people who's read my book, my son was in rehab, trying to withdraw from a heroin addiction. So I spent many nights crying myself to sleep whilst doing Secret Millionaire, thinking, I really shouldn't be here, I should be with my son. But as it turned out, it was okay in the end, and perhaps it was better I wasn't with him.
You next went and did The Business Inspector on Channel 5, which was the first programme that had been sponsored by HMRC.
Yeah, I must be the only person who's with any wealth who has worked on a TV programme for Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. That was great. I loved every minute of doing The Business Inspector. I went into a wide range of businesses, from dog grooming, where I took my dogs to get them groomed at the same time as examining their books, to the funniest one was a pole dancing school. And the two girls had the most fabulous figures. Gorgeous they were, two sisters. I think they were probably 21, 22. And by goodness, could they work that pole with like 8-inch heels on and stockings and suspenders. But trying to get any kind of accounting from them was like drawing blood. So I sent my accountant, who was, well, I sent my FD down there, actually, who I thought would be there a day. And a week later, my MD said, Hills, I think he's looking at a different set of figures than those that are contained on papers, as he were watching these girls swinging up and down from the pole. We had to drag him back into the real world and set him back down to work at Palix again. That business didn't succeed. I didn't think it would. It was more like a hobby for them. But by goodness, they were good at it. No. And then I did Flowers, a flower arrangement company, which was two sisters, actually, who spent 99% of their life arguing and criticising each other. And rather than trying to get their business back on track, I was acting as peacemaker, getting them to make friends most of the time. So I didn't do very good with them. Then I did a bar, a cocktail bar, which was good fun. And we did a bar in St Albans late at night, and they were losing a fortune. And then I said to him, where'd you get your spirits from? Oh, I only used the best, the finest. And I said, well, how much are you paying for this and this and this? And it were like quadruple the price of what you or I would pay. So I said to him, why don't you just go to the wholesalers and get the cheapest booze? I mean, you put so much in a cocktail, nobody would know the difference. Oh, they would. They definitely would. So I thought, right. So I went out, I furnished him with the cheapest gin, rum, Bacardi, vodka that you could possibly obtain. I then went and dragged a willing 20 people from the street, set up all these cocktails, some with top-class spirits in, some with others. And do you know what? every single one of them preferred the cocktails with the cheaper booze. So that business was so damn easy to turn round, he just had to change his buying habits. But yeah, the business inspector I've thoroughly enjoyed and I had a lot of fun.
Now, you then went on to Dragon's Den, where...
I need a drink before you question me anymore.
Where you became quite well known to the general public, especially for expressions like "you make my foot itch" just before you went to beat somebody up the backside. Now, how have your investments gone in Dragon's Den?
Brilliant, actually, but a lot of investments never go through, because what people don't see is that after the programme's finished, the Dragons continue with due diligence on their investments, so you're engaging lawyers and accountants. And then, by the time you're ready to do the deal, they've either gone somewhere else, or somebody's approached them, or they've borrowed the money and decided they didn't want to bother in the first instance, and they did it just for the publicity. So a lot of the investments never actually go through, which is eventually why I left, because what was I doing there? I was there to increase a business portfolio. And really, I got probably one really good investment out of it whilst I was doing it, which was Devey, if anybody remembers that, where they had a mattress in a caravan, which is now transposed into a probably £20 million business, with their HD range of mattresses, which was voted the best mattress at that price range in the country. So it's actually flying out the door and non-stop growth. The growth in Devey is phenomenal, particularly in the HD range. If none of you tried their mattresses, you should, and I mean that sincerely. You'll have the best night's sleep you've ever had.
Now, Hilary, you haven't been on TV for a while. Are you intending to do more media work in the next year?
Yes, I'd like to. I mean, it depends what's going and whether they want me and whether the public want me. I think people in the media become like a taste. You like them at some stage and then you hate them at the next. So I suppose it depends what programmes are on offer and whether or not I'm a fit for them. The last 3 years, I've just had surgery to correct surgery that I had 3 years ago that left me not able to walk at all. And I've just had corrective surgery about 6 weeks ago, hence my little friend here that I arrived on. I'm quite nifty on it. They took my driving licence off me when I had the stroke, but they can't take that away from me, can they?
Yes, Hilary. Now, as a child, you obtained your business ethos, you've always told people. Now, where did that come from?
I think it came from my father. As young back as I can remember, and I was probably 5 years of age, my brother was probably 7, and my beloved dad put a chart on the kitchen wall, so basic. So I got so much for washing up, so much for hoovering, so much for making the beds, so much for doing X, Y, Z. So I quickly learned that the more I did, the more I earned. The harder I worked, the more I got paid. So it kind of was ingrained in me from a very, very young age. Plus, I was brought up in business. As far back as I remember, my parents was in business. And because I perhaps was a gregarious character and the outgoing one of between the two of us, my brother and I, he's quite shy and doesn't particularly like crowds or people, in fact. So I was the opposite. So I got dragged into doing all the work in the businesses. So by the age of 11, I could run a hotel reception desk, take my father's dictation in shorthand and type it out. And I could also run a bar, cash it up, do the reordering, clean the bar, and shout, "Time, gentlemen, please." And if you can imagine a little tot, which I was, of probably 8 or 9, doing all that, then that was me. We had nice customers, though, so that helped probably. But yeah, business was ingrained in me, and making money was ingrained in me.
If you're interested in sharing your story, sharing your dreams, sharing your ideas in the largest personal development platform, the Best You EXPO, sign up today. Go to www.thebestyouexpo.com or send an email to info@thebestyou.co.
Yes, now, you set up Palex 20 years ago, just gone November last. Where did you get the idea for Palex?
The idea of Palex came from, I saw hauliers going bust literally every week. There'd be a haulier going bust. And I just thought, you know what, if they could share resources instead of all the capital expenditure of buying trucks and maintaining trucks and having the vehicle premises large enough to accommodate having trucks there, it could change logistics overnight. And literally, that's what Palex did. And all it was a membership network of 100 hauliers, all sharing each other's resources, which when you're in the trough, meaning when business is quiet, you know, they're not having to buy new trucks, they share drivers. So it was all about collaboration and just having the intellect to put it all together. Which I did. I mean, I met a lot of resistance when I was setting up Palex. I was driving 1,000 miles a day. I visited every single postcode in this country. And there's 126 postcodes in Britain, ladies and gentlemen. And I had a crappy old car that broke down every day. Fortunately, the good thing about being in transport is hauliers generally have a workshop. So whilst my car was in their workshop being repaired, I'd be selling them the concept of Palex. It was hard work, really hard work. And to get it going, and bearing in mind, I had a young child who was probably, how old would Mevlet be? He'd be probably nearly 10 when I started, because Palex is 20 years old this year. And he was quite a handful anyway as a child. But I sold my house, I sold my car, which was my pride and joy, and I raised £112,000, and that's what I set Palex up on. Everything I did myself. I constantly worked 20-hour days and 7 days a week. Eventually, they say hard work doesn't kill you, but it very nearly did. You know, I had a serious stroke. And subsequent to having the stroke, I had cardiac arrest. So, you know, it did make me quite poorly. So it was kind of my whole life. I lived it, ate it, and breathed it. And I think most successful businesses have somebody at the helm like that driving them.
Now, Hilary, you talked about selling things to raise capital. Didn't you think of going to the bank?
Yeah, of course I did. I wrote the best business plan I've ever seen in my life, and I've seen hundreds of them. I wrote a really good business plan, which incidentally, for the first 3 years of Palex's life, traded pound for pound and pallet for pallet. I went to the bank and the guy was such a misogynist. I told him all the concepts, I'd given him a presentation, run the numbers with him, and do you know what? He said, just go home and forget it and look after your child. You don't have a hope in hell of succeeding. But that just gave me more fire in my belly, because I thought, I'll show that. So that's why I had to sell my home, which wasn't much really, sell my car, which was my pride and joy, and got this old banger, which I used for the first 15, 18 months really. But no, the bank turned me down. But I got my own back later, because when we bought our current facilities, they were falling over themselves to loan us money because we've done so well. So I managed to get the interest rate below interbank lending rate, which I think the bank manager got sacked for eventually, but it didn't matter because he's the one that turned me down in the first instance. So you know what they say, what goes around comes around.
Yeah, and you obviously needed a central hub for all your pallets to come in. Where did you start?
I set up, all I could afford was £2.50 a square foot. That's what was in my business plan. That's what I was going to spend. So I searched and searched, and what I did, I thought of, all I needed was a drive-through initially. So I thought, what could I use? So I thought of a Second World War aircraft hangar, because they have generally the parking space for the vehicles as well. So I approached the Royal Air Force, and they told me to buy a book called Action Stations, which would give me every location of every Second World War aircraft hangar in the country. And I found one in a place called Wymeswold, which is a little hamlet in Leicestershire. No running water, no electricity. So what do? You improvise. So I got porter cabins, hired a generator, and got 2 chemical loos, which I shared with about 35 lorry drivers and forklift truck drivers. Needless to say, girls, I learned excellent bladder control. I used to use the local pub when I needed a wee, but I kind of limited it to like 3 times a day I could go to the loo. And with no running water, so anybody who visited me was told, you can come, but you must bring me a bottle of water. So I could then make them a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. If they brought me 2, I thought all my Christmases had come at once. So I only had 3 people working for me then. Well, 6 plus 3 forklift drivers. And every single one of them was tasked with bringing 3 bottles of water in with them in the morning. So, like I say, I got quite good at bladder control.
Yeah, but it
Can
was...
I just have some water?
Of course.
That stopped him in his tracks, didn't he? Keep firing these questions at me.
But is it true you had a few planning problems and had to move, didn't you? Because you were...
Planning problems. I'd gone away for a well-deserved long weekend with my mother and father and my little boy. Whilst there, I got a stop order put on us from the local council. So I immediately returned back from my little holiday. And I thought, well, if they can do this to me, I can do something to them. So I found out the name of every single councillor in that area. And I phoned them all on a Sunday afternoon, knowing they'd be having Sunday lunch. And told them about all the jobs they'd lose and the prospect of a bright future. So they said, well, you can come to a planning meeting and put your case there. Well, I managed to get a stay of execution. This was about August time, and they'd given me 7 days. So I got a stay of execution to November. And during that time, I found our second hub, which was an old British gypsum mining site in Gotham, Batman City, in Nottingham. And there we remained until we moved to our current site where we had a purpose-built hub.
Now, during your time at Palix and before, you've always been interested in charity. How have you managed to translate this from your business?
Yeah, from the very beginning, when we wasn't really earning very much, I set up what we call a penny a pallet scheme, which then didn't generate a lot of money. But if you now think we're moving across Europe 70,000 pallets a night, that's 70,000 pennies that go to my chosen charities. The one that I've supported for the last 5 years is the Carers Trust, which is Princess Anne is the patron of the Carers Trust. The reason I did that is when I came home from having the stroke, and I'm paralysed on the left side. Although I can move my arm, I have no feeling in my hand at all, so I can't pick anything up. And I remember sitting on the bath and I was going to have a shower, and I had the towel round me, and I thought, what do I do now? I couldn't work the shower because I couldn't switch it on. I couldn't get undressed properly because how do you do it with one arm? And I started to realise what had happened to me, that, you know, my life had changed literally overnight with that stroke. I couldn't drive when I was doing 1,000 miles a day. I couldn't iron, girls, and believe it or not, I used to love doing ironing on a Sunday afternoon. I couldn't cook without somebody to help me. I couldn't go shopping because I've got a habit of picking something up and I can't feel it in my hand and I'm holding it so tight. You know, many's the time that I've been in a shop and I'm walking out and the beeper goes and I'm holding, I don't know, some mascara I've just picked up or something like that. Fortunately, I've got a very recognisable face now, so they know that I'm not shoplifting from them. But that's why I decided to support the Carers Trust, because I truly believe that there'll be some time in everybody's life in this country, all 60-odd million of us, will come a time when you need somebody to care for you, whether it be a car accident, whether it even be something minor like, you know, spraining your wrist or your arm or breaking your leg. You know, you will need help. Everybody will need help. And that's why I thought, and nobody recognises, as much as I think they should, that fact that, you know, and that's why I support the Stroke Association, the Carers Trust, and now I'm just starting to get actively involved in Youth UK, which is a charity for young people. Thank you.
Now, Hilary, you tell us you had a very serious stroke in 2009, and you said some of the effects of it. Is it still affecting you in your daily life?
Yeah, of course it does. I mean, to be honest, I can afford to pay somebody to help me. I mean, I'm not I don't need caring for 24 hours a day. But if, for instance, I'm cooking a meal, I'll need somebody to peel the potatoes and the carrots and chop the veg, because how do you do it with one arm? You know, you can't hold a lettuce with one arm and chop it, can you? So, I quickly realised I have two girls, they swap, but they help me, you know, and fortunately I can afford to pay them. But without them, I can't even brush the back of my hair because I can't get there with one arm. putting rollers in, curling tongs, straighteners, whatever. I need some help. So, yeah, it's impacted on my whole life.
And Hilary, turning back to Palex, where do you see Palex going in the next 20 years?
Well, I believe Palex will be the model, which I think is very resilient, and I think that's important when you're setting up a business. Know your business, know your market, know your media, and know when the downturns are coming. That's the secret of success. I started to roll out Palex in Europe in 2008 when I set up a network in Italy. In 2009, when I returned to work following the stroke, I set up a network in Spain. Following that, I set up a network in France and in Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Benelux, yeah. And now I've got a team of people that obviously do that. But that came about from the recession because I thought, we need to adjust our model to suit the economy. So it kind of prompted me to get a move on and set up in Europe.
If you're interested in speaking, exhibiting, or getting involved in the largest personal development expos in the world, contact us today at www.thebestyouexpo.com or send us an email to info@thebestyou.co.
And Hilary, how important is the team? If you were advising a young entrepreneur setting up in business, how important is it that they get a good team around them?
Well, it's not just important, it's absolutely vital that happens. And you should nurture, the person who's running the business should nurture, disseminate what information you've got. Everything they do, if they do it wrong, make sure that they've learnt from that. It doesn't matter that people make mistakes, it matters that they learn from it.
And have you experienced this in your own business? Because when you had a stroke, you had to withdraw from the business for a few months and rely on other people.
Yeah, I did. And I truly believe that generally, and they did a good job in kind of running the shop and steadying the ship and reassuring customers, members, but they're not innovators. Generally, the person who sets the business up is the innovator, and that's the person that will come up with the ideas and actually make those ideas happen. You don't do it yourself. You've got teams of people that you disseminate what your concept is to, and then give them tasks, critical paths, and set them on the way to achieve those tasks.
And moving on from there, Hilary, you were the small business champion for the Stronger In campaign.
Oh, don't get me going.
And I'm sure I'm not giving away any secrets when I say you were disappointed by the result.
Yeah, I was, but I'm not a Ramona. I believe in democracy, so, que sera, sera, what will be, will be. I do think, personally, and this is only me, I think the British people are resilient, and we are but a nation of shopkeepers, as Nelson said. So we will get there. I just think, if you can imagine the country as a business, and you had a database of 500 million names, would you actually rip that up and throw it away and say, no, I don't need that, I'm going to set up my own database? Because that's effectively what we've just done. We had 500 million customers that we've just turned our back on. I don't see how we will replace that. And I believe it will affect small and medium and large businesses. And I think it probably will take 2 to 3 years before it comes home to roost. But like I say, I think we are a resilient nation. I think the British people are strong, proud people, and I think we'll do our best to make it right. I still think we should have remained in the EU.
Yeah. Now, going back to Dragon's Den, Hilary, there are currently 2 vacancies, as they tend to be falling like flies over the past couple of years. Would you ever go back?
I don't know is the answer to that. I don't know. And BBC have not asked me to. They never, ever take a dragon back who's left. And there have been a lot leave. Because it's so intense. And if your own business still needs you, your business suffers because of it. I know Theopathetus nearly lost his businesses, and that's why he left. I know that Piers Linney did lose his business. It went bust out Sosri. So, unless your business is thriving that well and you've nothing else to do and you're totally complacent, I don't believe you could do Dragon's Den long term.
Anyway, Hilary, thank you for that. Now, I'm sure the audience are anxious in the time left, because we've only got about 10 minutes left, to ask any questions, and Hilary will take any questions at all from the floor. So if anybody would like to put their hand up... I'm not so sure
about that. But if I don't want to answer, do I have to?
As long as it's not another proposal of marriage.
Well, I don't know. Depends who it is.
Right, does anybody have any questions for Hilary?
I bet they all go quiet and shy now, don't you? Come on. Put your hands up. Can I have a drink, please?
Yeah. Hello. Quick question, just really about the pallet business. You're talking about the logistics. So you saw the potential for an idea that increased efficiency. So what were the key aspects for your success in that during the early stages?
I think it's trust, sincerity, and a good relationship. It still is today with our franchisees and the head office. I'll give you an idea. I mean, I think you have to keep them very, very close, because there's an awful lot of competition out there, as there is in a lot of businesses. They all followed me. Literally, it was plagiarism. After I'd set up, there was 9 other networks set up. What was the question? I've lost my track.
Well, can you explain I think what the gentleman is asking, can you explain the reasons why the Palex model saves money and is a good model?
Well, it saves money because if you had a haulier before I set up Palex, and let's say he wanted to send a 3-palletised consignment from Cardiff to Carlisle, what he'd have to do is he'd have 3 or 4, 5 guys in a traffic office phoning everybody round. Have you got any loads to go to Carlisle? Have you any pallets to go to Carlisle? And they'd do that for probably 3, 4 days, phoning everybody. When they'd filled their vehicle, off it would go. But when it got to Carlisle, they then had to fill it on the way back. So the same process would happen in Carlisle, where they'd be phoning everybody, have you got any pallets to go to Cardiff? And sometimes, in order to fill that vehicle, that driver would have to stop probably 30 times en route to collect pallets to fill the vehicle. So with my model, instead of going from Carlisle to Cardiff, he would do Carlisle to the centre of the country with a full load, and he would then, at the hub, collect another full load. So we'd run full both ways. And instead of doing the extra 200 miles, he's cut it short. He's run from Carlisle to the centre of the country, dropped his pallets off for delivery, which can be anywhere in the country, and then all the other members who want to send pallets to Carlisle would then load his vehicle full, so off he goes back to Carlisle with a full load.
And that, of course, enables the service not to take a week or 2 weeks, but to be done overnight.
Overnight. What pallets did was diminish the carbon footprint by up to 60% within the first year of operation. So it took all them HGVs off the road during the day because they trunk at night. Do you understand now?
Yeah. Next question.
Hello, Hilary.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for my water earlier.
No worries. I just want to ask you, what advice would you give for a business startup to take it off the ground? What would be the key 5 or couple
first
points?
Well, first of all, I'd, like I said before, know your business. What kind of business is it?
Properties.
So you know your business, presumably. You've done properties before. Know your market. Get your business plan right, and for heaven's sake, get your cash flow forecast right.
Okay. Well, it was basically more, or would you do it first and then grow as you're doing it, and mission statement?
Most businesses that are good businesses always metamorphosize into large businesses, and it's how well you run them. Everybody makes mistakes, and I don't think you should be frightened of making a mistake. We're not born managing directors or CEOs, and even if you go to university and take an MBA, it doesn't make you a good managing director or chief executive officer, trust me. You know, it's all learning. When I set up, I knew from my father the basics, but I didn't really know how to run a business. I didn't know the legislation involved in running a business. I had to learn it. So, we're not born with it. It's like any job. You pick it up as you go along, don't you?
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Hi, Hilary.
Hi.
Quick question. I was wondering, how important has mentorship been for you? And
what
has mentorship been for you?
Incredibly, and I get a lot of pleasure from it. Unfortunately, now, when I was on Dragon's Den, I got business plan after business plan after business plan. And some I took on and some I didn't. Those I generally did, just because I enjoyed the fact of seeing a young person succeed, and not for money. And I didn't involve myself in equity stakes in their businesses. Sometimes now I wish I had, because they're very successful. Because it's not rocket science. Running a business can be difficult, and it can be very highly pressurised. But it isn't rocket science. There's generally a solution to everything.
And, have you had mentors yourself along the way?
Have I what?
Have you had mentors yourself?
Not really, other than my father, no, not really. Which is quite sad, really, but I'm a good listener. I believe that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth and used them wisely. And I listened a lot, and therefore I learned a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Hilary. Thank you for your talk and your time. It's very inspiring. So my question might be a little bit personal, so feel free if you don't want to answer it. So we know you have put a lot of time and energy into your business.
We know what, sorry?
We know you have put a lot of time and energy into your business, but how do you adjust the balance between work and family? And do you have any regret regarding to your family? And if there's one thing you could change, what would you do?
I think the thing
Thank
I would
you.
change is I would have spent more time with my mum. You know, she never understood. You know, she'd ring up and the secretaries would say, well, I'm sorry, she's in a meeting. She'd, what meeting? What do they meet for? What are they talking about? She never quite understood it. And I think if I had my time back, I would spend more time with my mum. Sadly, now she's passed away and I can't do that. But I was always so busy. I was always running here, running there, working till, you know, burning the midnight oil and up at the crack of dawn to do some fly somewhere or whatever. And I didn't really give her the time she deserved. And I wish now I had. Same with my son, you know, I often think if I hadn't started Palex and I wasn't working 7 days a week and 20 hours a day, would he have turned to heroin? Would I have seen the signs earlier? Could I? Because by the time I found out, he was over the age of consent. And really, all I could then do is stand by and keep pulling him back from the brink, which I did for a lot of years. But because I blame myself, although he says it would have happened anyway. And he also says, which for those parents, you know, just a note, he says, Mum, if everybody knew that they took heroin 3 times, they'd be totally addicted to it, they wouldn't do it, would they? And it's also seeing those early signs, and I just missed them. No, I do regret that very much.
Final question.
Hi. Hello. Hi, Hilary.
Hi.
Just a quick one. As a
Can you
startup,
speak up a little?
as a startup, right? Is it
As a
important?
what, sorry?
startup company.
Set up, yeah.
Yeah.
Startup
Is
business.
it important to get co-founders from the get-go, or do I wait to have till I have enough revenue to start hiring staff?
No, you've always got to. I mean, you'll know. Have you got a business now?
Yeah, it's a startup actually.
It's a startup, and what
Yeah.
is it you're doing?
Offer professional services to other startups.
What,
and
financial
training.
or
Yeah, financial, legal,
services?
everything.
Well, I think your own market will dictate the growth of your company. I mean, the more customers you get, the more run off the feet you become, and then you suddenly stop and think, well, hang on, if I paid another person to do this, it would release my time to perhaps go out and find other customers, so I'm starting to grow my business. If that helps.
Yeah, but did you get co-founders when you
Sorry?
started? Did you get co-founders when you started?
Co-founders? No, I'm still the sole shareholder.
I'll wind
I
it
have
up, yeah.
been for the last 20 years. I own 100%. But I also own a lot of other businesses. Well, I don't own 100% of. And I'm as happy with
have to
them.
do
In
it over there. I'll
fact, it's
explain.
easier to have somebody who's a partner with the same mindset, the same focus, the same tenacity. If you can find that, I would say do it, because it really is much easier than doing it all on your own. It's pretty damn lonely up there.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I think you will agree with me that was an absolutely fascinating talk. Thank Robert, and most of all, thank Hilary Deveyl. Yeah?
Thank you, everybody.
For more information, go to www.thebestyou.co.